I've been giving career advice for nearly a decade, and now I'm telling the internet about it. The thing is, the most useful way to give said career advice is by using tangible examples of real people. And initially I was thinking, well, I can't do that in this context because we don't all know the same people. But then it dawned on me, actually we kind of do all know the same people, because we are nothing if not a generation full of unhealthy parasocial relationships with fictional characters. I know parasocial relationships span many ages, but I do think that the golden era of TV series that were 100 seasons long with 50 episodes each do make millennials, myself included, some of the worst culprits for it. So come with me to give career advice to the fictional characters that, whether we love them or hate them, we all feel like we know unreasonably well. Quick side note, all of my career mentoring is based on jobs that have positive impact and are future focused in this crazy, rapidly changing world with AI and everything else. All of the advice that I'll give today is also through that lens. Okay, let's start with probably the most overanalyzed millennial protagonist on the internet, Rory Gilmore. And if you're thinking we're going to talk about journalism, because famously she was an aspiring journalist, wrong. I'm going to cast your mind back to this infamous scene with Mitchum Huntsberger.
But I thought I was in a really good rhythm with everyone here.
I'm not saying you're not competent. You're smart. You're terrific at anticipating needs. Actually, you'd make a great assistant.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
And I know this was meant to be a snub, but I think that was just snobbery, because if we really think about it, Rory's skills did lend themselves really well to an operations type role. She was organised, she could proactively anticipate bottlenecks and help people mitigate them. She facilitated delivery very well. And now, thanks to the research done by 80,000 Hours, we know operations roles can be some of the most impactful ones that you can have. Making sure that organisations run effectively and don't waste time is one of the biggest multiplier effects that you can have. So with this in mind, I'd tell Rory to apply for something like this fellowship at the Cambridge-Boston Alignment Initiative when she graduates. It's a summer fellowship for an operations associate. She'll be doing all of the daily logistics and the event planning, some of which are reading groups, might I add. Perfect. Managing all the relationships, all skills that are really within her wheelhouse. They specifically say it's a high impact, high visibility role, so they're not demeaning it like Mitchum did. And it pays pretty decent for a graduate internship. She wouldn't even have to move away from her college town. And I like how they frame it. They say, when operations work well, everyone notices. And when they don't, you're the one to fix it. I think that sounds like something Rory would thrive in. If she still insisted on being snobby about operations roles, I'd suggest that she goes for something research focused instead. Her diligence and her work ethic for researching papers and articles for the newspaper would be pretty transferable to research roles. If she did one of these internships that has an international focus, then she can also fulfill her dreams of travelling the world at the same time. Okay, one for the slightly older millennials, Slater from Saved by the Bell. So if you didn't watch, Slater was essentially the high school jock with the heart of gold. His main thing was athleticism. He wrestled and was the quarterback, I think. He ended up working as a gym teacher when he graduated, so he stayed in sports. So we're going to take this combination of his athleticism and the fact that he's a very kind person, so we're going to assume that he wants to help the world and the people in it. And we're going to suggest an organisation called High Impact Athletes, a non-profit who connect athletes to high impact causes. They've got athletes from basically every sport, so Slater could fit in wherever. And they recently advertised this role in collaboration with Hyrox. Slater was before Hyrox's time. He's not in that Hyrox era. But let's be honest, I think if he was around for it, he would be in on the Hyrox fad. I'd tell Slater, instead of going back to his high school to teach gym, to turn his sports into a high impact force for good. Elle Woods, Legally Blonde. We couldn't leave her out because she already fits into a lot of the career advice that I would give her. So we all know Elle loves her iconic dog Bruiser, and they're with her all the way through getting her Harvard law degree. And in Legally Blonde 2, she actually ends up tracking down Bruiser's mum and fighting for animal rights legislation on Capitol Hill. She's already in a really high impact field. If you change the law, you're not only helping a few animals, you're helping animals in the entire system and all the animals that will at some point be born into that system. So huge impact already. We're not going to pivot what Elle is doing, but we are going to channel it and get her there sooner. If I could go back to Elle while she was studying at Harvard, I'd suggest that she does this student externship with the Animal Legal Defense Fund, which is a summer program researching opportunities in animal law and ways to make impact there. Things like networking with lawyers who are already in that field and researching for organisations that work across animal rights issues. And then she could work at any of these kind of organisations when she graduates. So that would basically have just helped her scale up from just helping dogs to helping lots of different species. Who knows? Elle could have been the one to represent Estrella, that woolly monkey in Ecuador, whose case won rights for wild animals under the rights of nature. Okay, moving on to a millennial classic, Harry Potter. Harry's career aspirations were to follow his interest in defence against the dark arts and eventually be an Auror working for the Ministry of Magic. And I think we can essentially boil that down to he wanted to protect the world from succumbing to dark forces. He's only at school, so we're going to go for an internship rather than a full-time job. I'm going to go for this internship in nuclear safety at the Vienna Centre for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, which is basically a technical way of saying they're a centre that promotes international security and peace by trying to stop the spread of nuclear weapon capabilities. Kind of like Harry trying to stop the Death Eaters from terrorising the wizard and muggle worlds. So after that, he can look at employers like the International Atomic Energy Agency. They do inspections of nuclear power plants to make sure that they aren't secretly developing weapons, which seems pretty parallel to Aurors, which are essentially the enforcement officers of the wizarding world, checking that no one is brewing dark magic. Okay, pretty topical one, obviously it's everywhere at the moment, and that is Andy from The Devil Wears Prada. If you remember at the beginning when Andy was an aspiring journalist, she actually looked down on the fashion world before she started her job at Runway. So with that in mind, we're going to go back to her roots and suggest this tech journalism fund, which offers up to $25,000 for journalists who want to work on a report about how society is intersecting with emerging technologies. So things like how AI is impacting kids. This kind of fits with her I'm a serious journalist doing serious journalist things vibe that she had at the start of the film before she starts working for Runway and then opens her mind to the cultural significance that the fashion industry has. For our other fashion related protagonists, Carrie from Sex and the City and Jenna from 13 Going on 30, who I always liked because there's not that many people that I come across with the same name as me, we're going to suggest that they look for some climate forward fashion based organisations. So like the Global Fashion Agenda or the Apparel Impact Institute, who are trying to make the whole fashion industry more sustainable and reduce its carbon footprint. Okay, Meredith Gray of Grey's Anatomy. You might be thinking, she's already a doctor. Pretty sure she's already having a positive impact and her role is pretty future focused and safe. True, but there is an organisation that's dedicated to further increasing the impact that doctors have or general medical professionals have beyond what they do in their clinical practice seeing patients. It's called High Impact Medicine, and I would tell Meredith Gray to go on their 6-week career planning program, which mentors doctors and surgeons to figure out a way that they can scale up the impact they're having for big global health problems so that their skills can reach more people than they can in a one-to-one capacity. Katniss Everdeen. Obviously, she was this brave, resourceful protagonist in the Hunger Games. I wouldn't say she was a political leader by nature, but she did seem to be a fighter driven by injustice, particularly in a grassroots kind of way. She was kind of the catalyst for the rebellion, but really she just wanted the world to be just and fair to everyone and make sure that everyone was treated well systemically. So I'd suggest she goes into something like humanitarian advocacy or even movement building, because she's clearly a very charismatic and inspiring person who gets people organised and acting for what's right against big systemic threats. Okay, this last one is a little bit rogue, but stick with me, okay? Spongebob Squarepants. What does SpongeBob cook? Krabby Patties at the Krusty Krab, famously. And what are Krabby Patties? They're burgers made from sea lettuce. Does that make SpongeBob the original meatless burger protagonist? Maybe. Okay, that was a beautiful spot to sit, but the squinting was getting out of control, so we've relocated. Back to SpongeBob. I would suggest in the first instance, he does this 4-month internship that basically guides people through developing food system initiatives. He can network with industry experts, he can learn some business skills around the food industry, secure some funding to start his own initiative. Imagine a chain of Krusty Krabs that have franchises in every sea in the world. The possibilities are endless. Or he can take the skills that he learned and work somewhere else, like the Good Food Institute, who are a non-profit working to make food systems better for people, planet, animals. A lot of the jobs they offer are remote, so he could even stay on the seabed. He's pretty passionate about Krabby Patties, so maybe something like this communications role where he can talk to other people about it. And if none of those options interest him, he can use this jobs board, which is entirely dedicated to roles and organisations, that is entirely dedicated to jobs and organisations in the alternative protein sector. The opportunities are endless. Let me know in the comments what other fictional protagonists you'd like to see me give unsolicited career advice to. It doesn't have to be millennials, I'm happy to branch out. I had a lot of fun making this video and I hope you enjoyed watching it and that you maybe even got something useful out of it. Imagine if one day you can say that you were inspired to get your job because you related to SpongeBob Squarepants. Alright, thanks and see you in the next one.